Hello teachers, and thank you so much for joining this live streamed community event on the Teaching English Facebook page, brought to you by the British Council. Today we're going to be exploring Dictogloss in the classroom with Rachel Tsateri. Rachel, how are you today?
I'm fine, Marcus. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Teachers watching, my name is Marcus James. I'm part of the Teaching English team. If you do have any questions about Dictogloss and using it in the classroom, do pop them in the live chat. We've got Weham who's helping us out in today's live event. Rachel, quick question for you though. We're talking about Dictogloss in the classroom, and I'm sure let's preempt a few questions that are going to come through. What is a Dictogloss?
So I was going to start with what it isn't, Marcus, if that's okay. So yes, what it isn't. It's not a typical dictation. It is a kind of dictation, but not a typical dictation. What do I mean by that? So in a typical dictation, the teacher reads a passage, sentence after sentence, and students just write what they hear. Then the teacher collects the sheets of paper and corrects, checks students' work. Now, this is a little teacher-centered, maybe, a little boring, a little, okay, let's call it old-fashioned. So what is Dictogloss? It is a reconstruction of the dictated text, which is done in groups. It's a group reconstruction. It's done collaboratively. And the aim is to capture the information content as accurately as possible. And there are some steps, Marcus. Are we ready for the steps?
Let's do that in a second. I'd just like to give a quick shout out to audience who are joining us. We've got Rula in Athens, Greece, Jessam in Morocco, Paula in Italy, Anne in Vietnam, Marta in Bulgaria, Paula in Italy as well, Maribel in Peru, lots of teachers watching, and Luca in Romania. Okay, let's hear the steps.
Yes, let's hear the steps. First of all, thank you everyone for coming. I'm always happy to share my ideas with teachers. So yes, the steps. There are 5 steps. The first one would be preparation, or what we may call the lead-in, right? We may want to activate our students' knowledge, their prior knowledge about the topic, and prepare them for the listening. So if the topic is Christmas holidays, maybe we can ask them to brainstorm words they know related to Christmas holidays, or we can ask them how they spend their holidays or how they usually spend them. This prepares them for what they might hear, and they expect to have some language or some sentences, for example, in the dictation. The second stage is the dictation. The actual dictation is where the teacher can read a passage or play a recording, or it could be a video or audio file. Now, we can do this multiple times, 2 or 3. A good idea is that the first time you can ask students to just listen for the main idea, to get used to the speaker's accent, to the speed of delivery. And then the second, third, or even 4th time, they can take notes and just expand on their notes. Now, the third stage is the text reconstruction. Here's the fun part. We can group them. We can put them into groups of 3 or 4, or larger groups. It depends on the number of students you have. They can compare their notes. They start sharing, and they start creating their version, their group version of the text. They ask each other, what notes did you take there? What did you hear? Help me, I have this gap. So they support and help each other, which makes it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fun, let's say. The next, which is number 4, is analysis and correction. Now, this can happen in lots of different ways. For example, you can give students the answer key. You can give them a copy of the text, and they can check and then identify their mistakes or any gaps or any problems they had identifying words or sentences. You can project it on the whiteboard as well, and they can again read it and check. Other teachers like to ask one student to come to the whiteboard, be the secretary, let's call them, or the scribe, and start writing the text while the rest of the class are shouting out, words and sentences, which makes it also quite loud and funny. It might not be appropriate for really large classes, but it's worth trying. So that is the analysis and correction. So students read the version, the finished version, and they compare it to their own, kind of underline mistakes maybe. And the fifth one is what I like to call the discovery step. I really like this words actually used by a writer. He is called Wilson. So why is it called the discovery step? This is where reflection starts. When learners look at their gaps, any gaps they have in their knowledge, any mistakes they made, and they wonder, why did I make that mistake? Maybe I didn't know the word. Maybe I knew the spelling, but I didn't know the spoken form. Or maybe I didn't know that grammatical structure or that collocation, etc., etc. So these are the 5 steps, Marcus. Maybe we have any questions or any comments?
Excellent. Well, that was a lot of information to digest there, Rachel. Thank you so much. Yes, a few comments coming in. I'm just going to check my comments queue and see if I can bring them up right now. Where are they gone? Okay. So firstly, May Abdullah says, hi, Rachel. You taught me in TYL in Notting Hill College, and I'm thrilled to see you again. So you've obviously got a fan following you, watching you. Now, Fabio Slesio says, what's the question here? Is this a top-down approach?
A great question. Hi, Fabio, and thank you for asking. Let's get technical. Yes, I'm happy to get technical. I think it is a combination of top-down and bottom-up. When we say top-down, just to clarify that for teachers, we mean that we use our background knowledge of the world or the topic to find information that is missing from the text. So I'm filling in the gaps by guessing, by using the knowledge I already have about a topic, right? But it's also bottom-up listening. Why? Because I'm also constructing the text and meaning by putting together bits of information that I hear, words, sounds, sentences. So it's a combination of both, Fabio, bottom up and top down. That's what makes it a really useful and, in my opinion, a great activity. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rachel, for responding there. Okay, we've got a few more questions coming in right now. So this one from Jabida. We're talking about reading, right? When teachers read aloud multiple times, it's more listening for students. How can we involve them reading more? So how would you categorize the Dictogloss?
An integrated skills package is what one writer called it, Ruth Weinrib. And I love that phrase because I totally agree. So first of all, lots of listening practice, right? We have 2 or 3 times the teacher reads or plays the audio multiple times. So lots of exposure. And then when learners are interacting with each other, they're also listening to each other, aren't they? Communication is listening and speaking, this interaction. So they're also practicing this together. They're practicing writing, note-taking, spelling, these mechanical skills, punctuation as well, if necessary. They're speaking, as we said. They're communicating with each other. They're negotiating meaning. They're putting the text together, listening to each other, responding. So lots of speaking practice as well. Lots of, let's call it student talking time, STT. And they will be reading, of course. It's not exactly reading a text to check their comprehension, but they will also be doing lots of reading while they write and reread their text and correct it and edit it again and again. I would say it's an integrated skills package as well, with a focus on listening more. What do you think, Marcus?
Okay. Well, I would agree. I mean, just in today's session so far, 8 minutes in, we've had a lot of information, a couple of comments, obviously reflecting that there is a lot of information to digest. If I were now to try and summarize those points that you made, I probably would struggle because there's been that much. I would have to rewatch this live event. So possibly we'll come to a summary in a little bit. A few questions coming through as comments here. So I'm going to pin this one by Jose Domingo Cruz. How about using material like YouTube or other video instead of just written text read aloud by the teacher.
Absolutely. Sometimes teachers, we use authentic materials, right? We plan lessons, we use a course book. Sometimes we don't plan anything. We go dogme perhaps, or sometimes we use a video. It's a great idea. I would say after an initial listening or viewing or watching, whatever term you prefer, after students have had the chance to listen for the main idea, to get used to the speakers, to understand what the text of the video is about, then perhaps you could select a section of the video or the recording. You can choose which one you think will be challenging for students. Perhaps you want to focus on vocabulary that they don't know. So maybe you will select a section of the video with some interesting new vocabulary, if that makes sense. Or if you feel that they need to practice their pronunciation for listening, you will select a part of the video that might be hard for them to identify as they listen, so that you would help them practice, right? It could be pronunciation training. So I think it's up to you. It's a great idea to use a video or some other kind of authentic material, but I would recommend that first have them watch or read for general comprehension, and then focus on Dictogloss as a decoding, let's say, activity, like listening and writing, transcribing what they hear, so that they're practicing that skill.
Wow, so there's a lot going on, isn't there? There's so many purposes, so many things that you can do with this type of activity. There's a few questions, Rachel, regarding the level. So Chiara Milanesi asks, what level do you suggest for this activity?
When I started teaching, I thought that Dictogloss is only appropriate for higher levels. But at some point, I taught an entire Dictogloss course to A2 learners. And it went quite well. I'm telling you, they were enthusiastic about it because it was different, and because they realized that it helped them practice their listening, and it helped them also become more fluent because they were discussing the content, they were talking to each other, and they found the feedback at the end of the course was really positive. I would say we can use it with low learners, but we need to make sure that we do the following. We choose short texts. We don't have to choose texts that are over a paragraph long. 4 to 5 lines, not 45, can be ideal. So don't make it too challenging for them. Instructions can be hard for the Dictogloss. So you might need to give instructions in their first language, at least the first time, when you describe the activity. Or you might need to write the steps on the whiteboard. And then once they've done it once or twice, you can call it Dictogloss and say, today we will do a Dictogloss, and they will know what it is about. So these are some tips. Short texts that, of course, include language that will be helpful for your students' level. Give instructions in their first language the first time, or write them on the whiteboard. And maybe monitor a little bit, walk around, make sure they're not speaking, in L1 in their first language all the time, because this is something that tends to happen, not just with low levels in my experience. So monitor, and if you hear them talking in their first language, just gently, prompt them, tell them, how do we say that in English? Try to speak in English. Let's have on an English only rule, etc. These are some tips I hope you find useful.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Rachel. Again, a lot of information, so there will be a summary coming shortly with hopefully some practical.
I apologize if it's too much. Please stop me.
Well, we're not going to stop you, Rachel, but we will ask you for maybe a nice, slow, illustrative summary in a moment.
Sure.
Griselda Vico says it's great, referring to this Dictogloss. I'm assuming it's great because the best way of acquiring the language is through self-correction and avoid fossilization.
I like that comment. It's about independence, right? It's about learner autonomy as well.
Exactly. Maria Theologidou, excellent point. It also helps them foster their active listening skills. I like that. Oh, Fatima suggests, what are your thoughts on this, Rachel? For young learners, use their drawings, pictures, miming to get closer to the topic. Would that sort of feature as part of a Dictogloss activity, or maybe a scaffolding activity?
I love the idea, or it could be a way to help them brainstorm if they are finding it hard to brainstorm words or sentences related to a topic. Some pictures could help. I love that. And young learners also need to be more imaginative, more creative. So pictures are really helpful. So yes, we could use them to help them brainstorm at the beginning before we dictate the text, or even, as you said, support, scaffolding, like help for them to reconstruct the text. They could they could use the pictures as a basis for text reconstruction as well, some kind of differentiation maybe. So we're giving them some photos that if they're stuck and they don't remember, they can have a look, and that would help them, build some sentences. I love the idea. Thank you, Fatma.
Excellent. Maria also says, I totally agree that it offers excellent practice for all skills, and it sets the ground for more intensive reading practice, as well as it engages learners in the different stages of meaning construction through context and text.
Thank you, Maria. Absolutely.
And Buba has been the first to comment that we're wearing matching shirts.
Oh, yes. We were expecting that.
Coincidence. Anyway. Lots and lots of comments coming through. Chris Fry says, I have a variant of Dictogloss where students speak instead of writing the story. So it's a spoken reconstruction.
Oh, so they're not writing at all while they're reconstructing.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean,
what would that be called?
Dicto something, dicto speak. I don't know. It sounds good on paper, but what about memory? I mean, when we write, it usually helps us, remember things as well. We're putting them down on paper so we can forget about them and move on to the next sentence. I don't know how that would work, of course, if it's a short text, or if this variation, for example, is the teacher reads 2 sentences at a time, gives students a minute, take notes, they take notes, and they chat with a partner and they check, okay, what do you have? What do I have? That could work, especially if we're teaching students with dyslexia and we want to make it a bit less challenging for them. This is something I read in an article. Read the sentences 2 at a time. Give them a moment to chat with a partner. They can type instead of writing as well, if that helps them. So sure, I would just not read an entire paragraph, Marcus, and then ask them, to reconstruct it orally. If that's what they want, we could give them the option, but I wouldn't really ask everyone to do it. Does that make sense?
Yes, I mean, it's quite intense, isn't it, when you're listening? There's a lot of focus there. And again, perhaps, very often the listening skills are something that we tend to test more than develop in the English language classroom as well. So perhaps maybe do some sort of training for learners on how to listen rather than how sort of trying to be selecting information or being tested on the information.
Exactly.
Well.
If it's easier, we can also give an example, like a first day of class or first week of class Dictogloss example. Would that help? I have some ideas.
Teachers watching, now is the time to get a notepad and pencil or come back and make a note of the timestamp on this video. So over to you, Rachel. Yes, that would be a fantastic illustration.
Right. So let's say that it's the first day of class. Students don't know the teacher, and we also don't know much about their level. Perhaps we want to assess the level. We want to assess what strengths and weaknesses they have. So one idea is to prepare a text about yourself and get to know the teacher text, right? It can be as long as you like, depending on the level you're teaching. As we said, if it's low levels, we keep it short, then we can increase it depending on the level of our students. We can start the lead-in. Remember, the first step was the lead-in, the preparation. We can ask them to guess things about us. Who are we? Where do we live? What do we do? What are our hobbies? Well, how many years have we been teaching? And so on. So they can do a little guessing game to warm them up and prepare them for the text. Then the second step, the dictation. You can read the text about yourself, as we said multiple times. The first time, they just listen to get the main idea. Then as they listen again and again, start taking notes, etc., etc. Then you put them into groups and you tell them, now is the time to compare your notes and try to reconstruct or recreate or rewrite the text about me. They will do that. They will help each other. And at some point, they will finish their own version. Then what you can do to get them to check is to give them the answer key, as we said, or project it on the whiteboard. This usually works for large classes because you don't really spend a lot of time. You just show it to them. They can read it, they can check and find any mistakes or any gaps. Then some new language may come up from the text. Hopefully you will have chosen something new to teach them, right? Whether that is any words or combinations of words or grammatical structure or any pronunciation features maybe. And you will focus on that. Let's say it's not something you will have planned. You monitor what your students had problems with, and that will be your focus. That will be the lesson focus. You can teach that vocabulary that they didn't understand, or you can teach that grammatical structure that they didn't understand. But don't overwhelm them, I would say. Be selective, and just pick what seems to be like the biggest problem. Now, after you have done that, you can tell them, so now that you know things about me and you learn some new language also related to this topic, maybe you can also prepare a get to know me text about you, about yourselves, and introduce yourself this way to class. So the passage will serve as a model text, let's say, not just a dictation, right? And then they will also do the same. And that could be an idea for get to know the teacher and then get to know your classmates for the first day in class. Let's see, what does the audience think? Do they like it? Because I have two more ideas.
well, hopefully we'll have time for those, Rachel. Thank you so much for sort of going through a practical example there. Deborah Pusey's question, how many times should we dictate? I mean, I don't think there's any hard and fast answer to this. Like many things, it's like you know your students better than anyone else. What would be typical?
I've read that it's usually 2 or 3 times, even 4. I think that it depends. Your students might just be ready after 2 times or 3 times, or they might not be ready even after 4 times. But you don't really want them to have written 100% of the text, right? It's as we said in the beginning, it's not a dictation, a typical dictation where students need to have written everything word for word. So you want them to get the basic, let's say, meaning of the text. You want them to get the main content words like adjectives, big, small, etc. And then start filling in the gaps when it comes to constructing sentences. So I would say they don't need to have finished writing the whole text. Give them some chance to also reconstruct it in groups. If you see they're still struggling, we always need to monitor, don't we? Have a look around, read what they're doing. And if we see that they still need to listen once more, we can play the audio. I'm always flexible on that. So it always depends on what students need. So read the room, I would say. Just see how they react. If they're not ready, yes, definitely help them. Why not? Don't let them struggle. And if they are, just skip the next listening if they're ready. Why spend more time?
Yes, exactly. It's a difficult one. I mean, there's a question here from Ahmed Balila who asks, is it better to go through answers one by one or to show all the answers at once? I mean, it could be quite a time-consuming activity, especially if you're looking to present a model text. If it's just the first part of the lesson, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about the information that you've gleaned.
Does he mean sentence by sentence then?
I don't know, Ahmed, if you're still watching, do let us know.
Something that can work and save time, Marcus, is
big fan of
we
that.
show them the text and maybe we ask them to have a look at their text, find any differences or problems, and then we do a Q&A. Perhaps we give them the chance, to ask questions so that they can prioritize. We do not need to assume that they made all kinds of mistakes, right? So we give them the chance to ask questions about the mistakes they made. Teacher, I wrote this. Why is it this? Why is it that? So I need you to explain it to me. And perhaps this could help. Of course, with large classes, that might be more challenging for sure. So maybe keep the text short is again a good tip. Always a good tip, maybe.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of people, a lot of teachers, thanking you for your tips. Ranim is begging us, save the live, please. Of course, we keep all our live streams available on our Facebook page. If you head on to our profile and select from the top menu, live or videos, you can find all of our recordings right there. So obviously, a lot of people finding this very useful. Nimra says, this is so helpful. Thanks as well. Cleda goes back to this idea of drawing. So the question is it possible to read a text and they draw? So if you're setting a scene or maybe
it's a different type of activity, I think, which we call listen and draw, a kind of listen and do also, because we have lots of listen and do activities like listen and draw, you know, on a map, instructions, how to go from the supermarket to the pharmacy or something like that. It's different. They're not really reconstructing the text. It's a listen and do activity. They're showing us that they understand what they're listening by doing something. So it's kind of different. I wouldn't call it a Dictogloss. Still a very useful, beneficial activity, especially for lower levels, because they don't have to produce language. You don't have to speak or write, right? So they listen and perform an action, ideal for low levels. But I wouldn't call it a Dictogloss if there's no text reconstruction.
Yeah, that's right. We saw quite a bit of the sort of describing a picture type activity during the COVID pandemic. It was quite a nice activity to do online, where the teacher sort of describes or maybe has a picture in front of them that students can't see, and then describes that picture, and the students then have to draw their version kind of in a blind way and then show it to each other and compare.
Absolutely.
So yes, it's a different type of activity, isn't it?
It's a great activity and I love it. And I think I've used it with lots with low levels, high levels, children, adults, teenagers, the whole, you know, spectrum. So definitely.
Exactly. As Aisha says, listen and do activity usually strengthens those prepositions, because everything is on the table, in the corner, under the chair.
Right.
So it's a good one. It's a good one for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So many questions here, Rachel. Many of them we have kind of covered.
We can also come back and I can also try to answer later some of these questions. I'm happy to do it.
Well, we would love that for sure. I'm sure Weham, who's moderating, would appreciate a bit of help as well. But anyway, no pressure, no pressure. Naila asks, how to implement this teaching technique in class?
It could take an entire lesson, Marcus. What is that your experience too, if it's a 45-minute lesson, for example?
Well, I think for the very first time you do it, you have to really go into helping learners understand what the objective is and what you're going to be doing, because it can feel like a straight dictation activity that they have to write down every word that you say. Whereas if the concept, the idea is understood by your learners, and you check that they understand what's expected of them, then they feel sort of less panicky when they're listening.
That's a great tip.
I think a lot of us remember times at school where teachers would simply dictate, and we had to write, word for word. So it wasn't so much a Dictogloss as a straight dictation. So I think a lot of learners may be coming to our lessons having done that right? in the past. Yeah, it depends on their learning experience.
And I really liked what you said about telling learners, always explaining the reason, the rationale. Why are we doing the activity the way we are doing it? Because they might complain, but why, teacher? Why don't you show us the text? Or why don't you just dictate the text sentence, after sentence? Why all this? So it's always useful to explain to them the purpose, the objective, that it's not to just for you to listen and write everything that you hear one at a time, one word at a time. But it's this purpose. You need to try to also help your memory, train your ears, listen to each other, learn from each other as well. Try to fill in the gaps using the knowledge that you have of the language. Check your mistakes and see this little bridge. Why is this wrong? And then learn something new. and that it takes more time. And also the purpose is for you to become more independent as learners, because in real life, you don't always have the teacher to dictate you, to stop, to pause, to check that you've written everything and then continue, right? The real world is a jungle. So
Exactly.
I guess if we explain to them first, then they might be more open, but they do need to know, as you said, they have expectations. And if they're not met, they will be frustrated. They will keep asking why? And it's totally reasonable. Yes, I understand.
Exactly. Aisha Asim says, once you set the routine of a Dictogloss, students know the instructions and it consumes less time in the beginning, but it requires class and time management.
Bingo. Yes, that is a great comment. Thank you for adding that. You may struggle at the beginning. Instructions can be difficult to give. As I said, maybe give them in their first language or just write the steps on the whiteboard. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if you call it a Dictogloss, then every time they come to class and you say, we're doing the Dictogloss today, they know they don't need to hopefully ask. So that's a great tip. Thank you for sharing that.
Exactly. And if you are going to call it Dictogloss, I'm sure learners are going to ask the same question as Rajesh asks here. How have you got the idea of naming the activity Dictogloss?
Oh, no, that wasn't me. I'm not going to take credit for that. There are lots of writers who have written books about it. So, no, it wasn't me. But I think gloss comes from the fact that you're not exactly transcribing everything you hear, every little sound, letter, word. But it's more of a big picture view, let's say, kind of reconstructing the text. So not everything 100% accurately, but as much as possible. And dicto, yes, from dictation. But it wasn't me. It was Ruth Weinrib, I think, called it grammar dictation. But then it was kind of developed into Dictogloss because it doesn't only teach grammar. It actually helps students with lots of other things, skills, systems, not just grammar. So,
That's
yeah.
absolutely right. Information-packed session today, Rachel. Thank you so much for sharing. Teachers watching, there has been a lot of information. We do apologize if we have gone through quickly at times. However, the recording will be available on our Facebook page. And as Chris, I think, mentioned earlier as well, you can rewatch and slow it down. It's a good top tip there. Rachel, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you, Marcus. It was my pleasure.
And teachers watching, do continue the conversation in the comments below this video. And stay tuned to Teaching English. Coming up next week, we have some more live events for you. So thank you very much and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.